Well, hi guys. Welcome to Regulated and Rooted. So, if you are tired of diet trends, tired of the confusion, tired of blaming yourself for a body that feels out of control, then you are in the right place because your body is not broken. It's just responding to the inputs that you've been given. And every week, Jonathan and I break down the real science of blood sugar, hormones, stress, metabolism, so you can stop guessing and start leading your health with clarity. Around here, there's no gimmicks, no extremes, and no shame, just truth, practical strategy, and the discipline to align your life with how your body was designed to function. If you're ready to think differently and live differently, then let's get regulated and let's get rooted.
Let's go. All right. Good morning, Tiffany. This is
Good morning.
episode this is episode 6. We're calling this the real role of insulin, but in plain English. Today we're talking about insulin, not in a medical lecture way and not in a fear-based way, but in plain English. Now, insulin isn't random, it isn't evil, and it isn't irrelevant. It is powerful. And when we understand what it actually does, food cravings, weight gain, and energy all start to make more sense. Now, insulin instability could be the main reason that you're struggling with these issues. So we need to understand what insulin actually does. Now, insulin is a hormone that's made in the pancreas, and its job is simple. It moves glucose, which is sugar, out of the bloodstream and into the cells. It is released right after you eat. So when we eat carbohydrates, our blood sugar is going to rise, and insulin rises in response. Insulin acts like a key. It unlocks the cell and it allows this fuel to move into the cell. So that fuel can then be burned for energy. It can be stored as glycogen if it's in excess, or it's stored as fat if there's actually excess sugar, glucose, or glycogen that's already in the liver and the muscles. So one insulin spike isn't the problem, but repeated spikes all day, every day, those really matter. And when insulin is elevated, your fat burning is going to slow down, your storage increases, that means more fat storage, and your metabolic flexibility, it decreases. So insulin isn't the enemy, but constant stimulation changes that outcome. And that's why we need to understand how its role plays into your health and into your weight loss specifically.
I love how you explain that. And it's important to remind our listeners that this isn't about blame. This is about understanding your biology so you can work with your body instead of fighting it. So, if you don't understand insulin, you're going to continue to blame yourself. And when you do understand it, everything is going to begin to click. So, guys, listen up.
Listen up. All right, we're going to talk about different types of carbohydrates because the carbohydrates really impact our blood sugar. So we basically have two types of carbohydrates. We have simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Now, simple carbs are digested quickly and they spike your blood sugar fast. Think about them as a very thin, simple chain. It's easily broken up. There's not many bends or twists to this carbohydrate molecule. So perfect examples are things like soda and candy, pastries, white bread, crackers, most of your packaged snacks. And they create a fast spike and often a fast crash. Complex carbs, they're much more complex. It's right there in the name. They have bends and twists to the molecule. It's harder for the body to break those pieces off. Think about maybe trimming a tree right now in the spring. The more branches that it has, the harder it is to trim that tree. So complex carbs digest much more slowly. They're going to typically contain more fiber also. These are things like vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, beans, lentils, and whole fruits. If you've been with us any time, we always caution about fruits, especially if your focus is on weight loss right now. But if you're outside of weight loss, go ahead and put those whole fruits in. But listen, they're still going to raise insulin, but they do it more gradually. Simple carbs, they're actually going to end up demanding storage because of that fast release of sugar into the bloodstream. And we talked about it in another episode that typically we already have too much glucose and glycogen stored, so it's just going to turn right over into fat storage. But complex carbs, they allow for regulation. They allow for less of a spike in that blood sugar response. So when we reduce the frequency of these sharp spikes, we're going to create stability.
Everyone loves stability. And this is where mindset meets metabolism, is how I like to say it. This isn't about labeling foods good or bad. It's about understanding patterns. When you live on constant spikes and crashes, your energy is unstable. Your cravings are going to get louder and your consistency is going to get harder. And here's the thing, like, this is not a willpower problem, which many believe it is, and then turn the frustration inwards towards themselves. And this is just simply physiology at work. Stable blood sugar supports stable behavior. When your body feels regulated, discipline feels easier, and it is easier. So this becomes the identity shift. Not from a fearful, like restrictive mindset, not from fear, but from intentional choices that honor our bodies. So you become the kind of person who chooses stability over chaos, who works with your body instead of fighting it. And sometimes that means you limit certain foods because of their effect on your physiology. I know not everyone likes to hear that, but it's just awareness. It's just truth, right? So the question becomes, which is more important? Stability in your health and how you feel, or is it eating the foods you want to that are going to likely cause these issues that Jonathan is talking about? Sometimes we need to ask ourselves these type of honest questions from a place of love. Okay, this is not hate. Wanting to regulate your body and be healthy is not hateful. It is honoring. So a regulated body produces a clearer mind, which leads to stronger decisions, and that's how real change can begin to compound.
I feel a nerd alert coming on because I want to get a little deeper into specifically something called insulin resistance, right? Insulin resistance doesn't happen overnight. How it comes about is when insulin spikes occasionally, the body's going to handle that well. But when insulin spikes constantly, the cells actually begin to protect themselves. So imagine insulin knocking at the door of a cell. So at first, that door is going to open easily. I just had the thought of my son running around and knocking on our front door when he's playing outside. He loves to run up and knock on the door and then go hide. And so you open the door and there's nobody there. Well, he's there, he's just hiding. So when that happens over and over, you kind of lose that, thrill and excitement and go, well, that's just him knocking on the door. So you don't go to it and answer the door anymore because he's just playing. That's the same thing with insulin. If insulin knocks all day, every day, then the cell, it starts responding less. So the pancreas, its only option is to release more insulin. Now your insulin levels are going to stay higher, and high insulin blocks your fat burning. It signals storage. And over time, more insulin is needed to do the same job. So blood sugar may still appear normal on your lab work, but your insulin can be elevated behind the scenes, and this can go on for years. So the hopeful part, lowering the frequency of these spikes can reverse this trend.
Jonathan, I want to note two things that you said there. Very important. Occasionally versus constantly. It's important to remember that what we do consistently has a compound effect. So this means that if you're constantly spiking your insulin due to your nutritional choices, that is going to compound negatively on your body. But the reverse is also true. If what you do most consistently is eat foods that honor your body and your biology, then you will compound health. Our choices do add up and do matter greatly. And what you do most is going to be the main driver of the habits and lifestyle you're creating, whether good or bad. This is something I tell my clients constantly. Like, you're either putting tokens in the health bucket or in the disease bucket based on your choices. Like, one or the other is going to be filling up. And it's important to note this. You're not always going to feel these effects right away. That's the thing here. It can be days, it can be weeks, months, or even years. And regardless of the fact, the damage is being done. And we need to be more aware of this. Again, not from shame, not from blame or criticism, but from awareness so we can do better. When you know better, you do better. I tell my kids that all the time, 2 teenagers. When you know better, you do better. And with awareness comes a sense of responsibility to do the thing that is best for you. So how do you start? You pause. You practice the pause. We live in a microwave society where everything is fast and we hardly slow down long enough to breathe, much less make decisions. So if we just begin to practice this pause for 10 seconds and ask ourselves the question like, will this honor my body? Do we ever stop and think about that? Will this honor my body? Will this support my blood sugar? Will this help me feel my best? We will naturally become more mindful and make better aligned decisions when we do something like this, where we practice that pause, we step into mindfulness, and we begin to, I call it self-leadership. We begin to self-lead ourselves into a place where we're asking ourselves these questions. Because when you get honest with yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're going to begin to make those better decisions.
I use the bank analogy with my clients all the time too. The things that you're doing are going to either add positively or take away from your life. And you're right. Just like money in a bank, you don't notice small dollar bill increments adding up or being reduced until all of a sudden you look and either you've got a lot of money or you have no money. Maybe you're even negative. It kind of makes me think about the amount of decisions that we make every day. The average adult makes somewhere around 30,000 decisions a day. So think about that, 30,000. Now we decide on simple things like whether to stop at a stop sign, whether to step out into traffic, whether to swerve to avoid something in the road. We think about things like how to manage our work, how to provide for our families, heck, when to get up, whether to take a shower or shave that day, right? We make thousands of competent decisions every single day. We make safety decisions and work decisions and financial decisions.
And here's the thing about that, is that the simpler you make your decisions, the better. So it's important to note that if something is going to push you past capacity, your brain wants to discard it because it wants to keep you safe and comfortable. It's not your best friend. So you want to look at things like simple meals, simple workouts, drink water, and walk. Okay? Get on a soapbox here for a second. You do not need 7 days a week in a gym. You do not need to agonize over what workout you will do. You do not need fancy drinks or teas or coffees to get your nutrition. You do not need to watch 1,000 more healthy recipe reels. Okay? Just make one. You don't need a book. You don't need a guide or literally anything else. You just need to take simple action. You have convinced yourself, we all have, that we need more information in order to be successful because there's so much information offered. But seriously, like, you already know this stuff. You know the basics to be healthy, and you're selling yourself short. If I'm being honest with you, you're selling yourself short. You are living in decision fatigue because, like Jonathan said, 30,000 decisions a day, and it's from too much information. So best advice I can give you that you didn't ask for, turn off TikTok for an hour. Go move your body, eat an apple, drink a glass of water, and then thank me later. Email me and thank me later.
Yeah, most of our decisions are going to move our lives forward. But when it comes to food, we'll say things like, well, that's just how I am. And that's interesting because we're not careless. We're not incapable. We clearly know how to make protective decisions in almost every other category of our life. So why does food get this free pass? This isn't shame. Again, this is awareness. If you want the cake at the birthday party, have it. But we don't have to turn Monday into a celebration just because Monday exists, or go to food for comfort because we had a sucky Monday. Historically, food was more of a reward, meaning that if we hunted well or we harvested well, we ate. That food meant success and food meant survival. But today, we don't have to migrate with seasons. We don't have to hunt. We don't have to grow our own food. We can just walk into a store. Heck, all you got to do is pick up your phone and you can order it right to your door. So that reward system has been disconnected from the effort. And when food becomes a daily reward instead of fuel, your insulin gets spiked daily and your storage becomes daily. This drift becomes normal, and we end up labeling it as personality. This wording of it's just who I am or how I am. But no, it's the pattern that we have rehearsed, and patterns can be changed.
Thank the Lord they can. You said a lot here, and I want to first mention this. You mentioned food becoming a reward instead of fuel. And this is a big piece to this. We often eat to feel something, and so much of our life is food-based, and we want to enjoy what we're eating, and then we're ignoring the consequences. Because food was not originally meant to be enjoyed, to be pleasurable and make us feel something. It was meant to fuel us, to give us nutrients, to keep our bodies running well. When we begin to reframe food back to what it was meant to be, which is fuel, and we can disconnect from it emotionally, we are going to have a lot more success in eating to nurture our bodies because we're seeing food differently. Like all the way back, I think it was episode 1, and I shared the story of my client who her disordered eating began to transform and take on a new direction because she began to see food differently. Like that was the baseline where she started. And this is the work I do with my clients, like helping them detach from the emotion of food and realign with the fact it's meant to fuel us and it's meant to help us. Now, it's interesting when I am talking to clients or just with women and DMs, and I hear this a lot, and I bet you do too, Jonathan. I felt like I deserved XYZ. Like I felt like I deserved the cake. I felt like I deserved the coffee. It had been a long week. It had been hard. And then I ask, well, how did eating or drinking, we'll just say a Starbucks coffee, how did eating or how did drinking the Starbucks coffee make you feel afterwards? And then I'm told not only what is usually physical, but also a mental struggle that has followed eating what they deserved. And the question becomes, so do you believe that you deserve an upset stomach or a headache or bloating? Right? The shame, the guilt, the mental piece that comes with this. Because by eating that and knowing you will feel that way afterwards and using language like, well, I deserve this, what you're doing unknowingly is you are creating a belief, subconscious belief, that you deserve to feel that way because your actions are confirming it. And this has become normal. But truthfully, like nothing about this is normal. Eating things and feeling like a trash can the next day or not sleeping well because of high blood sugar, like Jonathan is talking about, is not normal. The difference is we've normalized it, but it's not normal. Your body was not designed to always feel terrible. And this is the most important part that I'm going to pull from what you said. It's just who I am lie that we believe, and this is a lie. You, listening to this right now, sound of my voice, you, Jonathan as well, myself, you are incredibly intelligent and you are a capable human being with a highly intelligent brain. And you are capable of changing who you are. And this lie that you are stuck as that has got to stop because it is holding you hostage from moving forward. Your belief is you can't change. And not only does that limit your incredible capability and intelligence, I was going to say intellect, but intelligence, but from a faith lens, that belief reinforces lack of faith in God to help you become who you want to become. And most importantly, who you were meant to be, who He's called you to be. You can always change as long as you have a heartbeat. But this is key. You must first want to. And you must secondly have that belief in yourself. And I know that belief can be hard. So if you don't have that belief, borrow mine for you. Because I know, like as sure as I'm sitting here, that every person listening right now can change. You can change, you can grow, you can mature, you can break habits, you can rewrite patterns, you can evolve, and you can become who you want to become despite anything anyone has ever said to you, spoken over you, or the lies in your head are telling you. Period.
You are worthy. Absolutely.
Amen.
So it makes me think about another story. And here's the part that matters. We can override these patterns for a while. We can rationalize them. We can normalize them. We can call them personality. But your physiology doesn't negotiate forever. At some point, it responds. I learned that the hard way. But I think I want to wait and go into that story in a minute.
Well, I love that story. So I'm like sitting here waiting for it. I think if we're all honest, our bodies have been screaming at us for a while. And we've either already learned the hard way, like you and I have, because our stories, we've both had the loss of health, the regain of health, or you've just not learned it yet. So this is like running full steam ahead, right? So you're running full steam ahead, but the only thing ahead is a wall that you are inevitably and eventually going to smack directly into. So my message here is that there is nothing worse. I think you will agree with me. There's nothing worse than sitting across from people who've lost their health. It's heartbreaking. And I used to work in a health clinic, and I worked with you as well, Jonathan. And I work now with clients with cancer and diabetes and autoimmune. And we see people all the time who have lost their health, and they look and feel so hopeless. And I know that if they could turn the clock back, they would. And so my plea to those listening is to please not wait until you are faced with a health scare and reality that you are losing your health. Do not wait. You have precious time right now to make a difference. Act now when you have the opportunity and can begin on that new path forward with that new belief. No amount of yummy food, please hear me, no amount of yummy food is worth your health being lost. It's just not. And that's what this is about. Like, that's what this podcast and this awareness is about your health inside out and how incredibly important that is.
Yeah, a couple things come to mind when I think about this is I have some people in my life right now that are dealing with some severe health issues, and they may not make it out. Their time, we feel and believe that their time is now limited because of this. Can I say it was because of their choices? I don't know, but I do know their lifestyle was not contributing to a healthy environment in their body. Their lifestyle was definitely contributing to an unhealthy environment. And can we say, well, that's the reason that they got sick? No, but they did get sick. What would it look like if they had been practicing healthy activities for their entire life? I don't know, but I experienced the same thing. And as I even think about the story, I'm already feeling a little bit of emotion building up there. And I think about when you're talking about that wall, the thing that comes to mind is Harry Potter, right? The Harry Potter nerds will know this. When they're going to catch the train and the magic is over a wall, and you see from the outside, they're running straight at a wall. And the first time Harry comes up to it, he doesn't know what's happening. And he sees these people running straight to a wall. And instead of running smack into it, they pass right through this wall. But then in one of the videos or one of the movies, Ron and Harry run smack into that wall and everything goes exploding. And that's what we're trying to help prevent. We're trying to prevent somebody from running smack dab into a wall because they just made these repetitive choices that have led them down this path that could and can be changed. They just have to decide to start to change that, and their path will come back toward that healthy path. And will it be bumpy? Yes, but you can change that path. So there was this season in my life that I had to start over, and some people already know this story. I'll preface it by saying that I think this was, sometime in 2023. But anyway, in 2020, I knew some things needed to change in my life. We were trying to get pregnant and things just weren't working out. I looked at myself and the situation around me and I thought, I have to change. So I started making some changes in 2020 before we even knew about the pandemic. And I was at 220 pounds at that time. And I lost, I think 30 to 35 on my own. I went to like 185. And then my friend introduced me to a program. I lost another like 20 pounds. I got down to 165. I was at the leanest I'd ever been. I was at single digit body fat. I looked fantastic when you see pictures. But during that whole time, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. Even though I was looking great on the outside, I still wasn't, not still, I started to not feel good. I thought I actually had long COVID. I had trouble with my energy. I had this unexplained fatigue that would wax and wane. It would come and go. I had joint pain that would migrate, and it would be different every morning. I remember waking up and having to do assessments every single morning. I would run through moving my fingers and my toes and my joints to see what hurt the most that day, because I would have to modify my work as a chiropractor around whatever was hurting with my body. And then I never knew what energy was going to be like. For 3 or 4 days, I would be really extremely fatigued and worn out. And then a day or two, I'd feel fantastic. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing, because I was eating the right way. I was working out. I looked great. I had everything right, but I just couldn't push through. I couldn't caffeine my way out of it. I couldn't grind any harder. I couldn't discipline my way past it, because I was already there with my discipline, but my body was shutting me down. And that forced me to see something clearly, that we can't override physiology forever. And at some point, it overrides us. Now, insulin works the same way. We can spike it by eating something that spikes it, and then we can ignore it. And we can live in this constant stimulation and just call it normal. But our bodies are obedient. They reflect the rhythm that we give them. Our bodies are not fragile. They are very responsive. They reflect the pattern that we live in. And when we change the pattern, the outcomes change. Our regulation, it creates freedom. And that freedom is what we're after. And Tiffany, you and I have talked about this. I fully believe that where I was with my diet and my lifestyle at that time allowed me to recover much faster than most people who are diagnosed with Lyme disease recover. Many people, it takes them years to recover from a Lyme disease diagnosis. I believe I had already had Lyme disease for years prior to the diagnosis, and I had several misdiagnoses along the way as well. But when we finally found it out, the extra nutrition that I added and the supplements, and then combining that with the right medications, I recovered in a very short amount of time. And I think where I was with my discipline and my mindset made all the difference.
I love your story. I could just listen to it and listen to it. I can just see God in it. In my life, I am in perimenopause, yay, 40s. And let me just say this. When I first began to hit that transitional wall, talk about a wall, and I started getting migraines all the time. My hormones were going crazy. I knew something was really wrong. I was horribly fatigued, started getting body aches, having issues sleeping, waking up through the night, I could go on and on and on. And it turned out it was hormonal. It was perimenopause. It's supposed to happen. It wasn't, anything bad, but it's just the progression. And what my PA said is that it is because of your lifestyle that your body realigned as quickly as it did. Your hormones came back into alignment, things regulated. Now, I do take HRT progesterone. I have endometriosis, so I knew that was coming in my future. That was not surprising to me at all. My lifestyle, the way that I eat, the way that I choose to honor my body with what goes into it, honor my sleep, honor my movement, is a huge reason why I didn't stay stuck in a hormonal nightmare for months and months and months on end. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm very keenly aware of the fact that if I had not, 6 years ago, if I had not lost that 40 pounds of the unhealthy weight, aligned my body to a place of health, I shudder to think like how that would have actually turned out for me and how much longer and harder it could have been. And I may still be fighting like the imbalance in my hormones. And those were her direct words to me, were like, it's because of your lifestyle. And, I also want to say this because it's just really heavy on my heart. Health is such a gift. It is such a gift. You know that, Jonathan, because of what you've been through, and you've lost it and then you've regained it. And you probably live every single day in the knowledge and the gratefulness of how good health feels. And health truly is a gift. Movement, the ability to go outside and take a walk on a gorgeous day. And we will complain about that, but that is such a gift. And there are people, even in our own lives, that can't do that. And they're laying in bed or sitting in a wheelchair or whatever it may be, walking with the cane, and they're looking out that window at that beautiful day, and their whole heart's longing to be able to go out and walk or go to the gym and work out. And the bottom line is that those of us who are able-bodied, we're taking advantage of that, something that other people would give anything, to be able to do and to have. And so I just want to bring our listeners back around to, this is a gift. We look at working out, we look at eating well and walking and drinking water. We look at these things as negatives. We look at them as punishment. This is not punishment. This is a beautiful gift. This is honoring. This is serving our bodies. This is helping us feel our best. And there's absolutely no punishment in that at all. It's just culture has warped us to think that way. I just really want to encourage everyone, sit down and think about that and really tap into what a gift it is to be able to have your health, choose your health, do something to prevent down the line losing your health while you still can. This is where we have to reframe everything, right? Because we got to have a reframe. This isn't punishment. Like I just said, it's not, I can't eat that. It's not that, I have to work out. This is not restriction. This is not earning and burning. It's alignment. Like I've said probably 5,000 times in this episode, it's alignment. It's honoring the body you were given instead of fighting it. It's recognizing that health isn't about control. It's about stewardship. Your body is not the enemy. It's not something to override, to silence, to punish, into submission. It's a gift, responsive, intelligent, designed with systems that work when we respect them. So like I just was talking about, movement becomes gratitude because you can move. Nourishment becomes wisdom because you want to choose wisely and feel your best. Discipline becomes care because self-love and self-leadership. Because it's that, like it is self-love and self-leadership to discipline yourselves. It's not a negative. And when you shift from punishment to alignment, from force to regulation, from shame to stewardship, everything will begin to change. Regulation isn't restriction. It's freedom in your health. And he who the Son sets free is free indeed. Book of John, right? One of my absolute favorite scriptures. Regulation is not restriction, it's freedom. And he who the Son sets free is free indeed. How do we become free? With truth and awareness.
Amen. This episode made you think differently about your health. The best way that you can help us grow this conversation is to share it with one person who needs to hear it. Text it to a friend, a family member, or someone who's been trying to figure out their health. And if you haven't already, follow the podcast so that new episodes show up automatically. Thanks for being here and being part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.